Okay, welcome back to The Skill Economy, the podcast where we talk about closing the gap between what school and university teach and what the real world actually expects. Because here's the truth, you did everything right. You worked hard in school, you may have got to university, you followed the playbook as it is. So why does it feel like you are not ready? In today's episode, Jerry Brazie is going to talk his story and help you understand the skills that really make a difference, how to develop them, and ultimately how to win in your career. Jerry Brazie is a successful, self-made American entrepreneur known for his no BS business advice who built multiple companies from poverty, generating hundreds of millions in revenue and managing thousands of employees. Jerry now mentors other entrepreneurs through his Kronos group and podcast. Jerry, how is your day going?
Fantastic, George, man. I really appreciate you having me on, and I love the topic. So when I saw you and we hooked up, and I thought, man, this is exactly who I want to be talking to, is you and your audience. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, really excited to have you. First off, what does a day in the life of Jerry look like these days? I mean, what are you up to?
So 4 years ago, I was dying in a hospital bed at 51 years old in November of 21. And so I changed my life overnight. I lost 100 pounds. I lost 105 pounds in about 8.5 months. And so with that came a carnivore diet. And it came 3 to 4 miles walking every day and lifting 6 days a week. And so I'm now 57. Yesterday was my birthday. I just turned 57 years old. And so it starts off every day with an hour of 50 minutes to an hour of lifting weights. And then always 3 to 4 miles on the road, 25 to 30 minutes on 175 degree sauna. And I do that religiously. I'm on a 6-8 split working out. And so that's a big part of my day, but also my life. And so I never miss that. I'm in the healthiest shape of my life than I have probably ever been in all of my life. And so then I come to work, and I'll work. I live in Tennessee, which is in the central time zone here in the States, down in the South, but my businesses are all on the West Coast. And so I work on West Coast time. So I'll get back home about 9 o'clock in the morning. And then usually I will work until about 7 o'clock my time, doing a myriad of things. I have a development company. I have a transportation company. And then I also have the new company that I'm putting together, the Kronos Group, a peer-to-peer group for entrepreneurs that are doing $1 to $25 million a year. So that is in that order. And then at night, I get done 6:30, 7 o'clock, and 3 or 4 nights a week, I go play pool. I love to play pool. I'm a big pool player. And so I'll do that regularly. Aside from that, in and around all of that is time spent with my wife. We've been together 33 years and been married 28 years. And then my kids, if they are around, I have 2 sons, one in the military, one going in. And so if they're in town, I'm spending as much time with them as I can. And my daughter lives here with me still. She's 26, and so she goes everywhere with us. And so I'm living a life as a man in full, but I'm still working 10, 12 hours a day. I love to work.
That's awesome, man. I love it. And it sounds to me, you mentioned there at the start about this fitness journey that you've gone on, but it sounds like you weren't always wired that way, but you were still running successful businesses before you went on this journey, right? So what happened there?
You mean relative to my health?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been in shape. I'm 6'4", 240 pounds. I've always been a big guy. I played a lot of basketball, played a lot of sports as a kid. When I turned 38, they found a 40% block in my left ventricle that was sat dormant in me. I was born with it genetically, and it just popped up. Nothing I can do, nothing I did wrong. But then I broke my back when I was 19 years old, and so I've had a 20-plus year opioid addiction up until that point to deal with all the pain, 17 procedures on my back, so I was limited there. And then I was working. I would work on my business for 10 hours, 12 hours a day, and then I would go referee basketball games to pay the bills for another 4 or 5 hours a night, 3 nights a week, and 9 games on Saturday and Sunday to pay the bills. And so once it hit me at 38, the businesses really started to take off. I was in relatively good shape, but then as we started to come into my late 40s, early 50s, which is 5, 6, 7 years ago, it took a turn for the worse. I started getting sicker. I've been hospitalized 61 times since 2017. I've been cardioverted, clear where they hit you. dozens of times over that amount of time because I have AFib where my heart races to 245 beats a minute. So I was taking 19 pills a day when I started this, but I found myself lying in a hospital in November of 22 or November of 21 and saying, I got grandkids that haven't been born yet. I'm not going out this way. So I've always been that fighter. It just kind of caught up with me in those last years. And I said, no, this isn't for me. So I got out of the hospital January 1, 2022. I went on to lose 105 pounds, like I said, in 8.5 months. I lift like a fiend. I put on 25 pounds of muscle, and I've never felt better in my life. So it kind of was, life is about ebbs and flows, highs and lows. And I found myself at a low, and it was either you correct or, life gets harder and things get worse.
Yeah, that's interesting. Those highs and lows, it can often feel like that for a lot of young people, especially nowadays. It's sort of like forced upon you almost to feel that way. You're told that it's okay to feel that way. That's how you should feel, especially when coming out of college. You see this a lot. I mean, how many highs and lows do you feel like you've had in your career, and what's helped you ride that wave?
Well, I think we had a conversation before the podcast, and you kind of have my write up and have a sense of what I am and who I am. I am no BS. And so I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. And it's important, before I answer that question, to have some background on me. I come from abject poverty. So I come from absolute zero. I have no education, nothing. I was living with hookers and heroin addicts in a $25 a week flop house when I was 17 years old. I got my first job as an 11-year-old, and I paid taxes, and I've never not paid taxes since. And so my entire world is about, I've been shot and stabbed and beaten within an inch of my life multiple times. My entire world is about survival. And so I look at the world, I look at hardship, I look at stress and sacrifice way different than most people do because of where I come from. And no amount of stress or sacrifice that I might ever go through as an adult would come anywhere near what I went through as a child. And so I have a superhero, a superpower perspective on life, which is no matter what life has thrown at me. And I have made massive fortunes. My companies have done, I've built, bought, and sold a dozen businesses over the last 25 years. I have had hundreds of millions and $450+ million worth of revenue. I have made absolute fortunes. I have lost absolute fortunes. I have made tremendously gigantic mistakes. But none of those mistakes in this high and low ever comes anywhere near getting stabbed with a 10-inch screwdriver in a mugging like I was and pulled it out of my own back in a bathtub in a seedy little apartment that I lived in on a late Friday night, and going back to work on Monday morning after taking it out of my back, right? When you have those kind of perspectives and you're grounded in that and you appreciate it and you're self-aware about it, man, the highs and lows that life throws at you as you grow in the professional world or as you grow in your family life, you get out of college and it's time to go do something serious. They just don't have any effect on me, and they never did. I don't get too excited and I don't get too down. I'm really even keeled right in the middle.
Yeah, great. I mean, when I saw your backstory, it just amazed me to see how far that you'd come on this journey. And of course, what comes with that is that you are, as I'm sure you're fully aware, such a huge anomaly of someone who is in this situation, managed to get out of it. And so how do you suggest, like in the podcast today, when people are listening to you, how should they take your advice and apply it to their lives? Because a lot of them haven't come from such a tough upbringing or tough background. So how should they think about the things that you have to say?
I think that, I'll give you an example. I have a nephew. This has been 10 years ago, so he's 22 years old, just got out of college. I saw him post on Instagram with some friends. They were complaining that they couldn't get a job. And then as the comments were going down, because they were just out of college, they couldn't get a job. And as they were going through the comments, he and others were commenting that they had gone to 3 or 4 interviews and weren't getting any calls back. And he tells the story better than I do. Matt's a partner with me on the Kronos group. Now we're 10 years on. And he tells the story better than I do, which is all of a sudden his phone rang and he was working at a warehouse, had worked his way through college. And the phone rings and it's his Uncle Jerry. And he picks up the phone. What's Uncle Jerry calling me about? And I lit into him. And I was like, what are you talking about? You went to 3 job interviews and you didn't get a job. You sent out 5 requests for jobs and interviews and resumes. and you only got 2 answers. What are you talking about? That's not even effort. That's not even starting, right? What starting is 100. Come talk to me when you have 100 under your belt. You want to find that job. You want to find success. You want to be able to work in the real world. You got to be able to put up with getting crushed. This is why I've always said that one of the hardest jobs in the world to do is sell something door to door. Because you have to, it's not like on the phone. The phone's hard enough, but door to door, you're getting that door slammed in your face, or you know they're home and they don't answer. And only 1 out of 100 buys something from you. If you can sell door to door, you can do anything. You can do any job in the world if you can sell door to door. So if you want me to explain, in a quick little burst, what mindset we need to try to chase in order to find success in life outside of organized life, school, and those sorts of things, but out here trying to make it in the real world, think about somebody selling dictionaries door to door and how difficult that is. If you can master that mindset, you can do any job in the world.
It sounds like what you're sort of touching on is the skill of resilience and young people having more resilience and growing in that ability. I mean, your nephew then, for instance, when you gave him that advice, did he suddenly switch around, or did he need more nurturing? How did he go about gaining that resilience and getting those reps?
Yeah, he took it because he knows we have a relationship. He knows where I am, who I am. He knows where I came from, and he took it. I wouldn't have wasted my time talking to him if, he wasn't somebody that's receptive to hearing it. And he took it. And to this day, it was a huge, he actually came to work for me a few years later at 23, 24 years old. He followed me around. We did a bunch of video stuff and things like that. And he couldn't keep up with me. He didn't realize that in the real world, people work from 6 o'clock in the morning and maybe not get home till 10 o'clock and then sit around and do nothing or, do whatever until 10 o'clock or till midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, get up and do it again and do that for decades. He didn't realize that. Now, he was in the best shape of his life because he'd go to the gym with me. I mean, he was a videographer for me, so he followed me around forever. And he quickly figured out what it takes to succeed at the level that certainly is my expectation in the real world. But the amount of effort that I put into growing those businesses and doing those things is the exact same effort I put into every job I ever had. Because for me, a job was eating. It was food. And so a job always equaled eating. And when I was a kid, that wasn't a give me. I used to steal food. I lived in Portland, Oregon. I used to steal food as a kid. I have 8 brothers and sisters. I have 6 older than me. And the next one above me is 7 years older than I am. So they were all way older. So there's no food. I grew up in abject poverty. And so when you grow up that way, you quickly, life becomes very simple. And so I always attached work and food. So I always knew to go to work. So I don't work any harder today. I didn't work any harder when I was working 15-hour days growing my company and going out and doing all that refereeing than I did when I was working at McDonald's at 16 years old. In fact, too, perspective is everything, because the things that McDonald's taught me, I use in my businesses today. So they paid me at the time $3 an hour, whatever, $3.10. But think about this, George. They paid me to teach me how life works, how to organize and structure, and to build something that you can teach redundantly, easily, so that anyone can do it. So you're not beholding as an entrepreneur or a business owner on somebody that has a very specific set of skills that can hold you over the barrel and maybe can't help your company to grow. So I learned that working at McDonald's, and I still use those skills today. So your mindset has to be open to accepting all of that.
I think those jobs are so fundamental, and I hate when I see people dodging them. Like, I worked in the UK's biggest chain of pubs whilst I was at university, and like you said, it's not fun work, but you learn those basics and those basic interactions and the human skills that do make a big difference when you then step up into the corporate world or wherever it is that you go after that. Something interesting you said then was about your nephew working with you. And so if I was your nephew following you around day to day as a videographer, what do you think he would say is different about you versus other people he may have videographed for, or other people who've seen? What is different about the way that you operate?
So I got to tell you a story to answer. It's a great question. I got to tell you a story. When I was 14 years old, when I was a kid in the late 70s and early 80s, and we were poor, Bank cards were a big deal. Anything with your name on it. It's not the same today, it's a different world, but anything with your name on it, particularly when you're a poor guy, a poor kid, it made you something. It was important. And I got a plastic card. It looked like a credit card. It wasn't. It was just a debit card. And again, debit machines had just become a rage. These things weren't even a thing when I was born. And so I took money out of the bank, this job I always held down, and I took money out of the bank, $80. I had to leave $5 in the account at all times. And I remember taking $80, but I wasn't careful. And 4 guys jumped me on the street at the bus stop, and they broke 2 ribs. They broke my nose. They stole what I believed for years and years afterwards. I would tell this story, and I would say they stole everything I had. But the reality was, George, is they stole nothing that was important because I was still alive. I woke up 2 hours. They rolled me underneath the bus stop. This is in the middle of August. And I wake up a couple hours later, and I come out from underneath. Very different time, 1983. I got blood down my front. Both eyes are black. My nose is broken. 2 ribs are broken. And I get on a bus, and now I have to get home because I'm on my way home. And I transfer onto another bus. And in Portland, Oregon, up in the Northwest here in the States, there is, on my way home, I had a mile and a half walk. And I have business back there in that part of the world, so I'm back there 1 week a month. And every 3rd or 4th trip, I'll go back to this square because it's still there. As the sidewalk is put down, for some reason there is a double-sized square in the sidewalk. And as I stepped on that double-sized square of sidewalk, a voice. Now remember, I'm all beaten up, I'm delirious. They beat me within an inch of my life. Behind me, this is on my children's eyes, behind me, a voice outside of my head said to me, "Everything is your fault." Now, I thought I was walking by a group of duplexes, and so I thought somebody was yelling at me out of the window of one of the duplexes. I don't know if it was Jiminy Cricket, God, Buddha, my conscience, whatever it was, but it was an outside voice behind me on my right-hand side that said, "Everything is your fault." I figured, having no idea what was going on, answered it and said, "How can it be my fault? I didn't do anything." It said, "If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be like everybody else. You have to take responsibility for everything that happened to you." That was it. Everything is your fault that happens to you. And so it didn't change my life immediately. I'd like to say that it was a hockey stick, and all of a sudden I took this great, whatever it was given to me, and I ran with it. It's not reality at all. I had a very tough life after that, time in jail, all of those things. But it started to take so much so that when my son was born at 28 and I got an offer to start a company from the business that I was working at, I was open to it. My son being born was a critical part to that. So 14 years later, it all kind of came together into this way that I work and this program that I have put together that I run my life by, which is everything is my fault. So if you were to ask Matt what a day in the life is with Jerry, number one, it's driven. It's not a short day. I get a lot done in a little bit of time, but I work a lot and I enjoy it. It's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of hard work, but there's no crying. There's no whining. There's no emotion. There's no money to be made in emotion. There's no money to be made in any of those things. It is simply me taking responsibility for everything that happened to me. Matt saw firsthand where an employee made a mistake and cost me $100,000. That happened more than once. But George, whose fault is it that the employee lost me $100,000?
Yours.
Right. Whose $100,000 did the employee lose? Mine. So if the employee lost me $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever it is, 2 things. Number one, I put them in that position that let that happen. If I blame them for that and scream and yell, I lose that employee. I lose other employees, right? Because they see your behavior. And many times you don't learn how is it that what upstream of that did you do wrong that put that person in that position to lose that amount of money for you? And then how can you learn from that to put it in place in other places that you can recognize and go, oh, if I don't fix it there, I see that there again, I'm heading for something bad. We want to get defensive and scream and yell and jump up and down, fire people. Maybe they stole it on purpose. Maybe they made the mistake on purpose, right? You deal with that. The point being, though, it's my fault. I put that person in that position to do that. I put that person in that position to hurt me. That's number one. Number two, I have made mistakes that have cost me 7 figures, 2 of them, right? I made a mistake one time, took me 5 or 6 years to get out of, and it cost me $5 million. And I was told by my peer-to-peer group that I was in not to do it, but I thought I was all high and mighty and I could figure it out. And it cost me 7 figures, $5 million, so mid 7 figures. So I've made the mistake. So who am I to tell them, right, when I've done the same thing? So that perspective and approach to business and approach to my life has been, I mean, it's absolutely the siren song of how I behave and how I run my work and my life at work and my life at home, which is everything is my fault. And if people understand that earlier, if I had learned that way earlier, I would have had much earlier success, because it's a superpower and no one follows these rules, particularly these later generations, because we're all victims. Everybody's a victim and everything is everybody else's fault.
Self-accountability, I think it's super powerful. And obviously you went on this big journey, and it sounds like your nephew has probably also started to learn that as well. I mean, did you see an instant switch in him? Do you think it's just a case of you demonstrated it, he learned from it, people need a mentor to go out and learn that? Or what is it that people need to see to make that switch themselves of like, it's my fault?
Yeah, I think he switched pretty quickly, and Matt Floyd is his name. And again, anybody can go to the kronosgroup.org, KRONOS.org, kronosgroup.org, and you'll see Matt there, and you can connect with him, and he does some great stuff online. But yeah, and now as he's in his 30s and we're starting this new business, he's getting a sense of what business is about. It never works like you want it to. It's way more work than you think it is. We've done work that we've then had to go change because it wasn't right. And Matt's, he'll tell you that, 5, 6, 7 years ago, he'd have bitched and moaned about having to change it. And now it's like, well, it's not good enough, so I have to change it. That analytical, non-emotional way at looking at business. Men in particular have this very difficult because we want to always be right. And when I was young, George, dude, I'm telling you, at 28 years old, man, I was incorrigible. I was impossible. I had done things, at 17, like I said, I'm living with street hookers. And at 28, I'm starting my own business. Enough experience had gone by. I had my second epiphany. This wasn't quite the same one as before, the voice outside my head. But I was sitting at a desk and I got approached to start a new business in the transportation industry. I'd kind of built a name up for myself a little bit. I was running a company for another person, and this outside competitor came in and said, "Jerry, we want you to run it. We'll finance it." And they sent me a pro forma, and I didn't know what I was looking at. They sent me a balance sheet and a P&L, and I didn't know what they were. And so I was sitting in this desk. Now, my son had been born, and so it kind of all came together, and the voice in my head said, "You got to shut up and listen." I've given this advice 100 times. Jerry, what's the key to success? And I'll tell you, George, because I've told many young guys, shut up and listen. Because when you are 25, 28 years old, let's say our brain is a 100 gig hard drive, right? Well, when you're 25 years old, you're just out of college, you might have experience, but your hard drive's 20%. I mean, if you're lucky, it's 20%, right? And then you get to be me, particularly the life that I have had and all of the things that I've done. Let's say I'm 80%. So I'm 80% and y'all are 20%. The reality is, though, that the 25-year-old, and I include this is me based on my experience, I thought I was at 80%, right? And then when you get to be 57 years old with all of the experience, I see how much more there is to learn, and I think I'm at 20% because there's so much more to go. Had I known that instinctively at 25 or at 28, again, another superpower relative to my peers who I have to compete with, I would have done much better. It is easy to say, though. It is very difficult to do. Here's what I did at 28. I had that epiphany. My son was born, changed my life. I had a half-built house at home. And I quit my job to go do this new job, not knowing if I'd even get paid. But the reality of it was, at the same time, I got rid of all of my friends because my friends were play sports, talk sports, go to the pub and watch sports while drinking, while watching sports, talking sports, and playing sports. Right? That's what I did. And so I quickly figured out that I was just going to be doing the same thing I was at 50 that I was doing at 28 when this epiphany hit if I didn't change. And so I got rid of all of these friends that I grew up with, but I was comfortable around them. Why? Because I was as smart as they were. There was nobody better than anybody else. We were buds. We'd been together forever. We'd survived a whole bunch of things. But the reality was I wanted more than they did. And the weakest person in your group, you will never rise above. You cannot ever pull the weak guy up. He will always pull you down. Now, you might be able to move up, but you won't go where you're supposed to because you have an anchor. I figured that out at 28 with my shut up and listen epiphany that I had. And I mean, I took it literally. Within months, I was hanging out uncomfortably with accountants and attorneys and business owners and people who knew more than I did. And I just shut up and listened and just took it all in. I was 32 years old. I was a millionaire. I went from living on the streets at 17 to a millionaire at 32. That first company, I grew to $3 million. They didn't have enough money to finance my growth. I did what I was supposed to, and they fired me. 17 days later, now I'm learning. 17 days later, I went and started my own business, got my customers to finance it for me, and that was at 29. And at, like I said, at 32, I was a millionaire. First company, I did 4 million, 8 million, 12 million, and 14 million in the first 4 years. And I'm an idiot from the streets.
That's one way to put it. But shut up and listen. I think it's great. And for a lot of people, something that's well known is that, you know, you leave a friendship group, like you mentioned, and there's this thing called like the lonely chapter, right? A lot of people go through, once they leave a friendship group, they kind of evolve to a level above it, just mentally in a way. They're doing different things. Like you started getting into business, your friends are still at the pub on a Friday night watching football. And so at university, and for young people, this is really hard because conformity is at its highest. All you want to do and all you've been taught to do, for the most part, is just conform, play into the education system, go to university, keep doing it. So for you, rising out of that friendship group, what were some of the difficulties that you had? Did you feel like they envied you almost in a way? And how did you actually eventually rise beyond it and find new friends in this new world?
It's a great question, and I'll take it. Mine is an extreme example, but I think it's relative for everybody, and it answers your question. When you grow up in abject poverty, it is generational and institutional, meaning that everyone around you, their parents were poor, and their grandparents were poor, and they're poor. And when everyone is poor, it's worse today with social media than it was when I was a kid, but it was every bit as prevalent when I was a kid, which is it's not your fault. So you're 20 years old. It's not your fault that you're working at McDonald's. It's some faraway hand that is controlling everything that's going on, right? Because you didn't have a good mentor, or you didn't have a good teacher, or your dad wasn't there, or whatever it is, right? Mom was an alcoholic. Everybody has these excuses, and you listen to people make excuses, the adults in your life, your whole life, about why they, if not for, I would have. If not for this thing in my life, I would have done these great things. And then nothing ever happens. And so you hear that. But when you try to get out, if you're going to break that, the people around you, your community, your friends, your family, they don't want to see you succeed. And some of this is conscious. A lot of it is subconscious because it's bred into us, in my case, generationally. And so what they'll do is they'll try to pull you back, because if you escape, if you in your example, and those guys at university, and y'all are tight and meet up every Friday, but if you escape, then that means that they're doing something wrong. If y'all stay at the same level, right, then everybody's comfortable. This we recognize. But as soon as somebody tries to step out, no, particularly in the poor community, we got to pull them back. Because if they get out, it blows away all of my excuses. It blows away my entire victimology. Right? You sit and you commiserate with people who think like that, you are going to think like them. And what you think dictates how you act. And so the reality is, for me, I had to get out of it. But I never smoked, I never drank, and I never did drugs. I never smoked because I watched my older brothers and sisters who were so much older than me. I watched them smoke, and so then they drank. So I said smoking equals drinking. And then they drank, and I watched drinking equals drugs. Okay, so I didn't do any of those things. So I was almost immune to that peer pressure that so many people fall for because of that unique background that I had. So I never fell into any of those side pursuits that can direct you or lead you off in different ways. And acknowledging that, regardless of whether or not your parents are drug addicts, regardless of whether or not your parents are alcoholics, and there's nothing I can do about it, I have to drink beer. Yeah, like somebody makes you pick up a beer and put it to your mouth. That's absolute BS. But we're taught all of the time that nothing is our fault. Imagine, George, if you're the one person at your age that believes that everything is your fault. How much of an advantage does that give you in life? In life, in a world where just being average makes you a super employee, right? I mean, really just show up every day and you're average. That's all it takes to be average today. I mean, I've employed 10,000 people. I know exactly what I'm talking about. To be extraordinary, you just have to be average today. So if you behave like people who are not like everybody else, if you behave different than that crowd, you're going to find that you're going to, A, going to learn a lot. You're going to see how much it holds you back. But B, your success should skyrocket. Success meaning experience, not monetarily, right? Experience got to come first. Monetarily comes afterwards. The more success you have, the easier it is to find that monetary success.
What's your advice for people that are thinking about getting into their first career then? Because you spoke then about what success and how you define it as experience. And I think this is an important thing. All I've ever valued in getting my first jobs has been, where can I go and learn the most? What do you suggest for young people when they're thinking about that first job? Because a lot of them just want to go and get the ticket in a finance role in London or in New York or wherever it is and make the money quick and do it that way.
That's fine. And that has its place. And I talk to, the internet, the social media is rife with, you're a chump if you're working a 9 to 5, if you're working for a corporation. You're not a chump if you're working for a corporation. Entrepreneurship is for a select few. It is very, very difficult to do. So the reality is most people who hear my voice won't be entrepreneurs. I would encourage people to go for it. I see entrepreneurship ability in strangers that I meet every day that they can't comprehend themselves, but I'll set that aside and answer your question directly. There's nothing wrong with that, because the more of that you do, the better you're going to be long term. The problem is, in particular, if you go work for one of these London firms and all of a sudden you're making 150, I have a nephew that's making 190 grand straight out of college in New York City. That's chump change, and that's not real money, right? In any other part of the world, it might be real money. In a lot of other parts of the world, it might be real money. But in New York City, it's not, right? He's living the same life that he would making half that much in Ohio, right in the middle of the country. And so you got to always have that perspective of, what do you want? If a $200,000 a year career or $400,000 career and working your way up the ladder over the course of decades is what you want to do to ultimately then find that great riches and all of the things that come with it, then that's fine, and you should do that. But if your mentality is, I want more quicker, you're not going to get that staying too long at the $190,000 a year job. It is fantastic to get paid to have somebody else show you the ropes, but it's easy to get sucked up in those ropes. And I'll tell you, as a 57-year-old, that y'all will find yourselves being 35 tomorrow, and 10 years went by, and you might be making 250 grand a year, maybe getting a $20,000 a year bonus at the end of the year, but you're like, wait a minute, this is not what I started out trying to do. So you got to be aggressive in chasing what it is you want to do and not get trapped. But here's the problem, and I'm sorry, George, I'm rattling a little bit, but there's a problem with that, which is that you're not going to find those great riches you want without risk. So at some point, you have to walk away from, in my case, it was a $50,000 a year job, but this is, 30 years ago, to go with nothing and referee basketball games at night to pay the bills while I was working on my company that was generating $8 million a year, right? I had to learn how to make money. And so I had to learn how to sell and had learned how to run a business. I had nothing. Look, man, I bought a house at 20 years old because I read an article that said that you needed to get a mortgage. I didn't know what a mortgage was. I didn't know what an interest rate was. And I didn't know what equity in a house was, right? But I read an article that said, buy a house. I paid $87,000 at 12.5% interest. I used that house 10 years later, 3 different times to finance my growth in the business. Because trust me, I knew what equity was at that point. And I learned how to make money. And the more I did that, the more risk I took, the more failures I had, the more I figured out how to make money. So you don't make the same mistake again. The more introspective I stayed, right? Looking at what I was doing, taking responsibility for myself, and everything was my fault, the faster, once I had that experience, I started to make money. But you can't, it's almost impossible to go from making the kind of money people see as an entrepreneur and that kind of riches without massive work, massive sacrifice, and massive risk. You just can't do it. So the safe place is to go work in London or New York, like you're talking about. Just go work for a financial outfit. You'll do very well. But will you do massively well the way you could otherwise? No, you won't. But that's a whole nother path to take.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about risk then. It sounds like risk would just be easy to you based on where you've come from and what you've done. Would you agree with that?
That's why I said I know what poor looks like. I know what poor looks like at a level that people can't comprehend, and so it doesn't scare me. But I have a self assuredness in myself, blended with a humility that lends itself towards being a leader and a manager. I always say that a good manager gets people to do for them what they want them to do and let them think it's their idea. So if you were to say, well, Jerry, you're this megalomaniacal, entrepreneur. Yeah, I have a big ego, but I also am humble. I don't need the praise. As long as you do for me, George, what I want you to do, I don't care whose idea it is. If it's my idea and you ran with it and you're going to go tell everybody it was yours, fantastic, as long as I'm making money, as long as the company's doing well. You see what I mean? But the small ego is going to want to go, well, no, George, who told you to do that? And you want to have a big crowd when you do that, right? So that you get all the accolades. I don't care about any of that. That's emotion. Right? That's not how I think. That's how a lot of the world thinks. Life in business is not these guys that build machines. They're building motorcycles or cars and they're throwing wrenches at each other and the camera follows them out as they slam the door. That's not real life. That's not entrepreneurial life. Life isn't even like sport, right? I mean, a huge sport guy, but there is no relation to sports and the real world, particularly the real business world. There's none. In sports, you get to yell and scream and you get in the referee's face and you get to kick dirt on the umpire. And, I'm assuming you're probably a soccer fan or cricket. You go down and there's a mistake made and the crowd goes wild. Why does the crowd go wild? Why does everybody have opinions about sports? It's because it's the one thing they can all kind of agree on and they can see it with their own eyes, and it's a commiseration point. Right? Imagine if we all stopped and said, we don't have any idea what it's like to be a professional soccer referee. How much pressure is on that guy? How about one of us raise our hand when we think the referee makes a mistake and we say, well, I've made a mistake, so I'm not going to complain at the referee. Why do we do it? We do it because it makes us feel better. Well, there's no value in that. There's no riches in that. There's no world to be found in a successful frame relative to entrepreneurship by being emotional the way fans are about sports or the way that sports players act. That does not translate to the real world. They are enigmas, right? They absolutely are unicorns, and they get to operate in their own world. But we've taken that and we've moved it into entrepreneurship and into society, and it just does not translate. And I see so many overly emotional entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs thinking that that's how they behave because that's how they've translated what it is to be somebody of authority and in charge and have employees and a business and all the rest of that.
So on the topic of risk again, how does a normal person take more risk? How do they stop being this reserved and quiet person? And do they need to take more risk in the first place? Like, do you think it's a good thing for people to be taking more risks?
Yeah, 100%. What we have to understand is failure is success. Success doesn't breed success, right? What breeds success is failure. So the more you fail, the more you learn. My background, as I briefly described it, is, I am who I am in spite of where I come from, but also because of it. I have the abilities that I have because of the things that I went through and I survived. So rather than look at it as woe is me and I'm a victim, I look at it as, man, look at the things I survived, George. Look what I've done, right? Now watch. I'm going to take all of that. If I survived all of that, I'm going to go do all of this. And so you have to have a confidence in yourself, but you have to understand that finding success, at least at the level that we're talking about, everybody's success is defined differently. It requires sacrifice. I've been, like I said, married for 28 years. I have 3 fantastic kids. I never thought I'd get married or have kids. I got married at 28. And in that has required tremendous sacrifice, a lot of learning, a lot of giving up who I am, a lot of fighting, right? A lot of all of those things to get us where we are. That's not just given to me. It doesn't just happen naturally. It's not easy. It takes work. But my life is infinitely better for having been married and having raised 3 great kids. Now at 28 years, we've been together for 33 years. And it's worth all of the work. I talk about how easy is it to put on weight? Simple. How hard is it to take off weight? It's brutal. And what's it take to take off weight? It takes discipline, and it takes sacrifice. It takes and you have to be willing and able to do that in order to succeed at it. Life is exactly the same way. If I were a young guy today, I would go work for somebody else and ask a million questions. And then I would leave the second I thought I was getting comfortable. And I would go to something else. I can't live in the same house for more than 4 or 5 years because my wife, poor thing, she knows this. We just moved. We lived in one place for 4 years and we moved right on schedule because I start to get antsy. Right? I don't want to look at the same thing every day. I don't want to watch television on the same wall. I don't want to sit in the same office. I want to go do something else. I need a different surroundings. I need that input coming at me. So I'm really in tune about my aggressiveness and the fact that the second I feel like I'm comfortable, I got to go do something else. Now, having done that, I've screwed a whole bunch of stuff up, right? Because I've gone chase things that I shouldn't have, and if I had just left it alone, I wouldn't have lost money and all the rest of it. But that's the experience. That's the loss. I learned a ton. I've learned everything from my losses. I learned very rarely from my success. When I tell people to go chase what they want, I always tell them, be aware of what you're not good at. What don't you do well? Social media will tell you, and this is why I think 85, 90% of business on social media is BS. It has no correlation to the world that I understand, is that you concentrate on what you're good at. Well, what you're good at will always take care of itself, right? When you own a business, you don't want to concentrate on how much money you make. You want to concentrate on how much money you lost. The biggest months I have ever had was about $250,000. So for a while, I was making a long time I was making $250,000 a month. And every month I was making $250,000. About the time I really hit that zenith, I decided I knew everything. And I bought a company, and that's a whole nother story. It ended up costing me $5 million. It took me 6 years to get out of it, and everybody told me not to buy it. But what I figured out going through that process was that I should have been making $310,000 a month. So for all of that time, I was costing myself $50,000, $60,000 a month. But George, I was making $250,000 a month, dude. I was on top of the world, man. I mean, no one can touch me. I'm this idiot from the streets, and look what I've done. And the reality is what I had done is I was costing myself $300,000, $400,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I was loving every second of it, completely unaware of it. So the lesson I learned from that is that I concentrate on what I'm not good at. I'm concentrating on the downside. I'm concentrating on the things that can hurt me. I'm not concentrating on the things that feel good, which are the things that I'm good at. Doesn't mean that you don't practice the things that you're good at and you get better at them, but they're so much easier to deal with. Dealing with the things that you're not good at, that is what's going to help you jump forward that much faster and give you that much more opportunity, I believe.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great thing to fail is what I'm taking away from that. And so for me, there's this period in your life where, I don't know if something changed, but at the moment you've spoken about 17 and 28, then you started your business study, 2 millionaire. What happened between like 17 and 28? What were you doing at that age and what was going on?
Great question. Experience. So I left from 11 years old. Like I said, I paid taxes as an 11-year-old working at a restaurant. I've never not had a job since. And I probably from 11 until 22, I probably had 15 jobs. And every job I moved, I gave 2 weeks notice because that's what a man does. And I moved to a new job because it paid me more. I didn't care what it was. So I worked every kind of filthy job you can imagine simply because it paid me more. I never thought about my comfort or why would I think about my comfort or my well-being or my time off or any of those things? That's not how men think, right? Our job is to go out and crush. And so I had all of this experience and I landed at this transportation company and I worked there for about 6 months and the dispatcher they had was an idiot. And so, I'd only been there 6 months driving for a living, another job that paid me more. And I went to the owner and I said, I think your dispatcher's an idiot. I can do a better job. I'm assuming you're paying her about $40,000 a year. And the boss was like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. I said, I'll pay you you pay me $10 an hour. Now, George, this job is 10 hours a day. This is before electronics and computers and all that. I'm doing it with a foot pedal, calling things out. You can't even get up and pee. I mean, it was an intense job. I said, but if at the end of 6 months I do better than she does, you pay me $45,000 a year. Now, $1,000 a year to a 22-year-old Jerry, circa whatever year that was, 1991 or 2, whatever it was, that's a ton of money. But I was like, let's go. you can't tell me no because I'm going to save you 15, 20 grand over the next 6 months. And I think I'm going to do a better job for you. So that's the investment in myself. 6 months later, I'd grown that company to $5 million in the intervening couple of years afterwards. 6 months later, it was inevitable that the woman that was the dispatcher ended up being my assistant. And until I was 28, that was the job that I quit, and I ran that business up to $5 million. And so I was learning, I was testing, I was trying to see what would happen, bringing together all of the pieces of my experience to come together at 28 when I was approached and given this opportunity and my son was born. The timing was perfect, and that's what made me jump. So back to my original, or my point from a few minutes ago, I was just learning, dude. I was just getting experience, and I was just saying, I loved it. This is a great job. They're going to pay me more. I'm going to go here. The reality was I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. I was learning how to dig holes and fix electrical wiring. And I mean, you name the job, I've had it. And it all benefited me to the good once I got to where I was able to start my own company.
Awesome. So it's almost like a modern day founder's associate type role where, you know, a young person goes and works underneath a founder of a company or a CEO. They study what they do, they study how they operate, learn about it. And so I think some actionable advice from that for young people is to offer value to someone in that position and just continue to do that, double down on it, learn from them, ask them a million questions. What else would you say?
You never get paid what you think you're worth. Get that out of your head, guys. You never get paid what you think you're worth. And you have to work to get paid. So what that means is you're going to say, that person over there is getting $40 and I'm only getting 20 and I do twice as much work. That's loser talk. That's average talk. That's how everyone else talks. I always say, you're paying me $20 an hour and I think I can do their job too. You can get rid of $40 an hour. And now I get the experience of that job and I'll do my job because my job's too easy. So I think I can do both jobs. You see the difference? I actually did that twice. You see the difference in that? If you're going to pay me, you get 100% of my time. You're not ripping me off. I choose to be there, and I'm getting this experience. And so how much better is my experience if I'm doing two jobs for the one that I was hired for? Number one, I look good to the employer, but even more so, I'm understanding about what I'm capable of. George, if you wanted to go out and start a business, but you say, Jerry, I'm uncomfortable, I'm not sure of myself, I say, okay, George, right now, there's someone at your house, at your mother's house, and I have a gun to her head. And if you don't go start a business, and if you don't make it a success, I'm pulling the trigger. How hard are you going to work relative to there not being a gun to your mother's head to make that business a success?
24/7.
Right?
You would stop, yeah.
It'd be unimaginable. But it's so hard to tap into that. I tapped into that as a kid because of where I come from. If we could all tap into that, every one of us has this superpower, but we choose not to work. And a lot of the reasons why we choose not to work at the level that we're capable of or to risk at the level that we're capable of is because we see the people next to us not doing it. If he's not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. He's getting paid more than I'm going to go do what he is. I make $5 more than him. I was like, I don't want to work for a living for an hourly for somebody else. I want what I make to be dependent upon what I do. And here's the message I want to say to the men in particular. I look at the world like I'm a caveman. So I approach business like a caveman. My job is to stand in that cave with the fire going and my back to the wall, and my children are warm and my wife is warm, and what's dangerous can only come at me through that front door, through that hole in the cave, so I can defend myself and my family better. But we can only survive so long out in that cave. Someone has to go out into the tall grass where something can eat us. Somebody has to go out in the forest to find something to kill where something can jump down and grab us. It's not going to be the girls. It's not going to be my wife. It's not going to be my children. It's going to be me. And so for me, I'm leaving the warmth of that cave and the safety of that cave. And I got to go out in the middle of it, and I've got to track down a pterodactyl, and I got to hit it over the head, and I've got to drag it back to the cave, forgetting about my safety and my comfort, forgetting about my time and my effort and all of the things that I do, because I have to live for something else. bigger than myself. That's my children and my wife. And I grab that thing and I drag it back. And then the next morning I got to get up and do it again because they ate that pterodactyl, man. I need to go find a bigger one. And I got to do it all over again. And maybe my arm is cut and maybe I got hit in the head. But I don't go home and whine to my wife or my children that this happened to me because I'm a man. I'm a caveman. And so when I approach business with that mindset. I got to go out, hit something over the head, and drag that thing back. And if you're going to go in your safe space, if you need to go feel better about yourself, guess what? You're going to be laying there getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger while I'm hunting down some big fat piece of meat and dragging it back. And that's the way that I look at the world. And I think that if more men looked at the world that way, they would find success a lot sooner because and success, again, I'm not saying monetary success. However it is that you define what it is that you want to do. That approach works in academia. That approach works in the corporate world, entrepreneurship, having a family, whatever it is that you want to do, that approach works. And I've seen it play out over and over again. And it's so much more rewarding when you set yourself up to live for something other than yourself, like that gun to your mother's head, and tap into that capability, dude, and take all the responsibility for yourself. I mean, imagine you're that caveman. Who's going to help you? But your wife dies if you're not successful. Your children get eaten if you're not successful. Approach work like that. Approach life like that. So if you ask me what does a day in the life look like for me, I just described it to you.
Yeah, I think there's so many takeaways in that on so many different levels, like you said. Like you can take that same mindset into you getting your first job. And, you know, some people just are applying online, trying to do their best, sending their CV off to 100 times. But some people are turning up in person with their CV, knocking on the guy's door, like, let me work for you, I will work for cheaper, do more hours and do a better job than this person.
Every day. That's right. And you go every day till they say no. I mean, that's exactly right. We think... Oh man, life's gotten so easy. We think that sending off a resume is applying for a job. I want to, again, I risk in how I talk of being labeled as, old man screaming from the wilderness. But I'm as, I am as active and as working and as tied into what's happening in the world as probably any 57-year-old ever has. This world that we live in where effort is a click is not the world. And it will never be the world. You're never going to be able to not live in the physical world. So the more you try to live in the digital world and not make those physical connections, you are doing yourself a disservice. Can you get there? Yes. Is there a bunch of influencers that tell you can? Yes. How many people really know them? How many are they relative to everybody else out there? It's a very small number. The reality is that your network is your net worth. And so the more people you know, the better chance you have of succeeding. And those are real relationships. Those are relationships where you can shake their hand and say hello or have a conversation with them on the phone or a conversation even like what you and I are doing, not something on the internet with comments and back and forth. And so that walking in the door to that place that you want to work, you want to turn somebody's head, show up in the world today because no one does it. They won't know what to do with you. So they'll throw you out. You go back the next day. So they throw you out. They go out the next day. Your mother has a gun to her head. How bad do you want the job? Right? That's my approach. If you ask me my mindset, and so when you get knocked down, and I've been, I hate talking about my success. I want to talk about all my failure. I have been knocked down at an unimaginable, both physically and mentally. Again, 61 visits to the hospital since 2017 because of the stupid heart I have and 2 heart surgeries. But the reality is that it depends. What do you want to do? How hard do you want to go at it? And do you just continue to push? And when I'm at my weakest is when it's hardest. I absolutely have spent mornings where I don't want to get out of bed. I absolutely have stayed in bed longer than I wanted to, right? The social media is full of all of these people telling you get up at 4:30 and by 6 o'clock you've done more than everybody else. No one does that. I know hundreds of millionaires. I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs. No one does that. Now, we all try to do it consistently. You try to be disciplined. But the reality is when it hits the fan, man, there are times it's cold out there and I just want to lay under those blankets for another hour and the world can go F itself and I'll deal with it later. It absolutely happens. But you can't let it happen more than a day or two. Then you got to get up and put your feet on the floor. Why? Because a pterodactyl has to get killed. and drug back to the cave because the kids got to eat. The wife's got to eat. The parents have to eat. And if I don't go do it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's really cool to think about life in that way, and I love just going back to the pterodactyl over and over. And so I think the last question I have for you, Jerry, it's been a great conversation. Is if you were 18, 19, 20 again, but today, what would you prioritize doing, developing skill-wise? How would you do it, and why?
And I mean this, what I'm about to tell you. I mean this 100%. Go have children. So how's that for a different? You're not going to hear this take from anybody else. Go have children. Men in particular, go have children. But I think men and women should go have children. A lot of my opinions are gauged towards men. That's who I am. That's what I am. That's what I recognize. But I've also seen this feminization of men in society over the 10 to 15 years. And you young guys have really taken the brunt of that. And us older guys need to push back on that. And you younger guys need to push back on that so you can become what you are capable of and what you're capable and who you are capable of becoming. It's very hard to do in a feminized society for you guys to branch out like what your instincts are telling you to do. The best way to access that is to have children. We are selfish human beings. I was 100%. When my son was born at 28, again, literally 1 second my wife is pregnant, the next second she is not, and my son is there. And my entire worldview changed. Instead of me having to hit, just some rodent over the head and drag it back to eat, now I gotta provide for something else. That was not a burden to me. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. What it did is it taught me what I'm capable of, because now I'm living for someone else. You can't live for a dog, you can't live for your parents, and you can't live for a girlfriend or a wife. You at the level that children will demand. It's not even close. So you have a child, and instantly you find what you're capable of. You'll find a person that you don't understand. All of the things that I'm talking about to so many people, again, caveman, that old caveman screaming on George's podcast about get out of the cave and hit a pterodactyl over the head, are going to realize real quick when you have a child, when you have a son or a daughter, hey, wait, I feel that. I want to go get that. Children bring money, they don't take it, and it is the natural expression of who we are. So my advice to anyone for success, if I could go back to a 19, 20, 21-year-old with my advice, knowing what I know today, I would have had children at 20. I had 3, I should have had 6, because children are the greatest success. George, I would give up my fortune today. I say this all the time. I would give up my fortune right now if you offered me a genie lamp and said, Jerry, if you give up everything you have, you're going to work 2 shifts at Taco Bell every day, but your kids will be 2, 4, and 6 again. With all the houses and all the cars and all the motorcycles and all the trips and all the stuff, you got to give it all up. Where do I sign up? How soon can I do it? You learn quickly the value of things, and it's not ever money. And money follows, it does not lead. We think money leads. It does not. Money follows. You ever notice how rich guys, super rich guys, 100 millionaires, these influencers, these billionaire influencers, they're always telling you do what you love. Notice that, right? You hear that all the time, right? Do what you love. It's all BS. I don't know a single entrepreneur ever did what he loves. I've never made in $450+ million worth of revenue, not a single dollar, and all of that money was ever earned doing something that I love. It is a means to an end. Do I love to go hunt pterodactyl? No. Right? It is a means to an end so that my family can be fed. I have no passion for the things that I have made money at. I am passionate about working on those things because my true passion is my family. And so my family gave me that drive to go do these things the way that I have so that they get fed, to the detriment of my health, possibly, to my well-being, to my mental health, all of those things. I'm a man. And so that discipline, right, and that sacrifice I do willingly. I would be embarrassed to sit in the car the way so many of these videos do online today, talking about the dad crying after a tough day because his family doesn't appreciate him. It is who we are. It is a superpower. Our forefathers knew that, and we have lost that. And so my key to success, if you are 20 years old, is find a relationship and have children. And the rest of your life, you will work in a way that is unimaginable to you. Short of that, just to give you a quick short answer on your question, is what I talked about. Get out there and get experience. Shut up and listen, and take responsibility for everything else. Do not commiserate around the water cooler. Get away from those friends that are dragging you back. We all know whose friends they are. We all know that we have friends who are going to drag us back. Understand you cannot get above them. They will only drag you back. And that will be a fantastic foundation straight out of college towards finding a career, I believe. And just last thing, think about it this way. I wouldn't want to compete with me in whatever I'm going at. I wouldn't want to because I'm crazy, right? I'll answer the phone at midnight. I have a customer spent $7 million with me over the last 25 years because I answered the phone on a Saturday to take care of a personal deal for her, and she called 2 of my competitors first and she got recordings, right? So I wouldn't want to compete with me because I'm an animal. Be an animal.
There you go, man. Jerry, I think you've got such an interesting take on all of these things, and it's advice that a lot of people haven't heard. Like, I don't know many people going out there telling 20-year-olds the most important thing they can do is think about having kids, but I think there's something powerful about that and in there. And yeah, it's been awesome to have you on. I mean, when people want to follow you, find out some more about you, where should they go?
Jerry Brazie, if you just type that in, you can find out everything you want about me. I just started a new company, like I said, a peer-to-peer group, the Kronos Group, KRONOS group.org. And that is for entrepreneurs who are doing $1 to $25 million a year. A peer-to-peer group, you get together one time a month for 5 hours. It saved my business. It saved my life at 30 years old. I was in one for better part of 25 years. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to start my own. Literally, I'm just starting it up. So you can find out everything about me at thekronosgroup.org or just search my name. It's right there on the screen. And you'll find all of my socials. I'm doing stuff about my health, and I'm crazy about the gym and working out and my carnivore diet. I only eat protein and fat. Dude, I'm intense, man. I'm crazy. I'm high on life, though, George. I love every bit about it, man. So, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. Some of your young buddies, y'all want to talk. I'm not looking for, just reach out. Let's have a conversation. I'm happy if I can forward this approach to life. And if you take a piece of it, you're going to be better off for it. But what I want everybody to hear is I am absolutely fallible, and life is very, very difficult. And social media shows you a different story. Don't fall for it.
Jerry, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it, George. Thanks a lot.